Hello, YouTube. I have talked about the strange whispers in outer space experienced by Soviet cosmonauts. You can find my presentations on the subject in several Western TV programs about the paranormal phenomena. And you can see the playlists in my channel. I have a few videos on the subject. Here's another source for information about this phenomenon. Someone I have mentioned several times in my videos. He was a talented Russian scientist, a keen observer of strange and paranormal phenomena. I will bring you more of his work in the future. Psalomshikov passed away in 2021. This was a real researcher. He knew things. In 2004, the article titled Moon Rainbow Syndrome was published in the journal Reality or Realnost by the candidate of physical and mathematical sciences Valentin Psalomshikov. And here is what he wrote. Around the mid-1970s, he had a confidential conversation with one of the Soviet first draft cosmonauts who voluntarily left the detachment after returning from an orbital flight. In this conversation, Valentin Psalomshikov was introduced to him as an expert on anomalous phenomena of the State Committee for Hydrometeorology at the recommendation of academician E.K. Fedorov. The conversation took place in an informal setting. The cosmonaut took scientist's word that his last name would not appear anywhere. In the article, he is called for short K, Cosmonaut K. The reason for his departure from the cosmonaut detachment was so incredible that at first Psalomshikov suspected a hoax. According to K, after about 3 weeks of flight aboard the orbital station, when his partner was asleep and he was on watch, the situation changed dramatically. The instruments and walls disappeared, and Kay suddenly found himself in the middle of a desert, and an unearthly one. At that, the cosmonaut was aware of himself as an ordinary person without a spacesuit and in general without any clothes. According to Kay, he heard a voice. Although he did not see its source, he perceived it in the usual way or without the participation of the organs of hearing. He just doesn't remember. It was not essential at the time. The voice said something like this: while you were crawling on the surface of your planet, you were a miserable worm. But now, having risen to the stars, you have become one of us. From now on, you have a different purpose. You will follow the orders of those whom I will send to you. Now you are scared and you are not given knowledge, so go back and wait. Cosmonaut K was back in front of the console. It didn't look like a short-term dream. He clearly, even after a long time, remembered this picture and the phrases that sounded. Later, another cosmonaut, known as K1, described a similar situation in which the moon rainbow syndrome manifested itself in a particularly vivid form. In his conversation with the cosmonaut researcher Krichevsky, K1 noted that it seems as if someone powerful and great outside is trying to convey this new and unusual information to you. According to the author of the article, Psalomshikov, cosmonauts K and K1 did not talk to each other on this topic, and their messages are completely independent. A week later, the situation repeated itself, but this time the cosmonaut's partner was awake. During the adjustment of the device, cosmonaut K again, without any transition, found himself in the same desert, and according to a vague memory, talk about something with a voice, but this time the content of the conversation slipped from consciousness. When he returned, so to say, he saw a frightened partner trying to revive him. According to him, K passed out, but his eyes were wide open and his pupils were moving rapidly, as if he saw something in front of him. Now about the earthly manifestations. Similar abnormal psychophysical phenomena were observed during long non-surface voyages of nuclear submarines, as well as with artificial sensory shielding, not only from external acoustic, as in sign language cameras, but also electromagnetic background. In particular, during the biological experiment described in the Terminator magazine, issue number 9, 1996, in the article Ghosts in the Air Defense Bunker, it was precisely this double shielding that led to the rather rapid emergence of some parapsychological phenomena. On average, as shown by observations in sign language cameras, on the space station itself, as well as in biological experiments of speleologists, a vibration of biorhythms and the appearance of abnormal mental phenomena is observed 10 to 20 days after being in conditions of sensory hunger. Under the same conditions, the threshold of human perception of external information signals decreases, and in particular at the subconscious level. It is possible that in such a situation, a person comes into contact with a hypothetical noosphere or space computer and begins to receive information that did not reach him in normal earthly conditions. It should be emphasized that the effect of the appearance of the outsider and the conversation with him were documented during a long-term test in a soundproof chamber, sign language chamber. The phenomenon was observed on the 10th day of being in the cell. Curiously, the subject could not tell if he was with a man or a woman, an old man or a child. Psalomshikov continues. After talking to the voice, Cosmonaut K almost immediately discovered the appearance of some oddities in himself. As soon as he moved a little closer to the TV camera, the Mission Control Center, or Flight Control Center, noted a deterioration in the quality of the picture and the appearance of some kind of interference. At night, he sometimes observed glowing formations and spheres near the station, but his partner did not observe them. About a week after the contact with the voice, K became confident that his wife was now in the Mission Control Center, and they would talk to him when entering the radio visibility zone. And so it happened. In the future, K always anticipated the appearance of his wife in touch, and a little later he discovered that he could communicate with her mentally. The wife confirmed the cases of such telecontacts. Finally, Cosmonaut K discovered an unusual property of receiving advanced information. When various instructions and recommendations were transmitted from the Mission Control Center, he already knew their contents before the transfer began. After returning to Earth, K did not report this anomalous phenomena to anyone. Moreover, during the period of rehabilitation and subsequent rest, they practically disappeared. When talking about the cases of similar anomalies in other cosmonauts, K, according to Valentin Psalomshikov, answered cautiously and evasively. The guys, referring to cosmonauts, told different things. See, the Cosmonauts Brotherhood also has their own folklore and it's their own legends, like, for example, mountain climbers do or cave explorers do. But as far as K knew, there was nothing like that in the official reports. Otherwise, they would have been immediately written off from further flights. You know this famous principle of psychiatrists: isolate first, then treat? Well, after the treatment, such a person would be forever put an end to, at least in their profession. But he still reported one frequently repeated phenomenon to the scientists. During testing on centrifuges, some cosmonauts experienced the phenomenon of leaving the body. After the 1990s, it received official confirmation. I mean, they could talk about it. There was no more Soviet Union. When asked how the Americans were dealing with these problems, K said that some astronauts had seen, and most importantly, they were able to capture on photo and film, glowing spheres and other formations near spaceships. Some of them generated telepathy, some of the astronauts. Americans reported unexplained departures of experienced astronauts from the space program, and some of them underwent a deep mental restructuring after the flight and acquired a pronounced religious and mystical bias for the rest of their lives. Psalomshikov revealed Cosmonaut K's secret a little. As it turned out, during the conversation with K, their meeting had a special purpose for the cosmonaut, which is why he decided to have such a frank conversation. K wanted to know, what is the cause of this syndrome? How can modern science explain it? And is it possible for such a thing to happen again? At that time, in the mid-1970s, the scientists could not give any sufficiently clear explanation to the first question, but he was able to answer the last question. During the flight on the orbital station at the altitude of about 400 kilometers, K turned out to be largely isolated from the biologically active and natural electromagnetic background necessary for normal life. As a result, cosmonauts begin to experience numerous disorders in the body, for example, leaching calcium from bones. At the same time, the threshold for perception of weak and ultra-weak signals from the outside decreases, which is facilitated by severe stress, especially during the first flight. If the stress was low, all these phenomena are reversible and should disappear upon returning to normal Earth conditions. But with severe stress, various psychic abilities may appear, which may remain forever. Earlier in the process of statistical processing, Psalomshikov was able to establish that, for example, over 80% of female psychics receive their unusual abilities after severe biophysical and mental stress, injuries, wounds, serious illnesses, news of the loss of loved ones, etc. At the next meeting 12 years later, K was pleased to inform Valentin Psalomshikov that no more devilry, he called it that, had happened to him. So the scientist was right. The first public announcement about the moon rainbow syndrome was made by cosmonaut researcher Krzyzewski, later doctor of philosophy and professor, who passed away, by the way. But he did it in October 1995, made his pronouncement at the Novosibirsk Institute of Space Anthropoecology. Later, it turned out that similar phenomena occur in cosmonauts and astronauts a month later, and even more so after the flight, although some may not have problems. A cosmonaut who has experienced the moon rainbow syndrome undergoes one or more transformations during wakefulness, turning from a human into an animal with exclamation sign. For example, cosmonaut K1 told Psalomshikov about his stay in the image of a dinosaur. He was a dinosaur. He felt like a monster, stepping over ravines and precipices. At the same time, he described in detail his scales, paws, webbing between his fingers, and skin color. Unfortunately, due to the long-term negative attitude of psychiatry towards such phenomena, psychiatric stereotype, Soviet or Russian cosmonaut pilots had to hide the appearance of this syndrome for a long time. This is what I wanted to share today. You can find more information about this in my other videos. on the subject of space exploration and psi and paranormal phenomena, but I wanted to show how Solomshikov was the pioneer in the field of this research. What other effects on human psyche the outer space has generated, we will find out someday soon. I hope the Chinese too will share their experiences, but I'm not being naive about it. So that's what I wanted to let you know today. If you can support my research, please do so through the links you will find in the description to this video. Please like my videos, and thank you for your support.